Welcome to the next episode of Music Design, where we uncover the tips and tricks the great composers of the past have put into these songs. Today's focus will be on gaming's classic A Link to the Past, composed by Koji Kondo. Since A Link to the Past was one of the earliest titles for the Super Nintendo, Koji was challenged by the new techniques of implementation, and also the additional audio channels he could play around with. In A Link to the Past in particular, Koji actually limited himself to only around 12 instruments. As such, we will see that he composes his pieces in such a way as to effectively fill up the sound space with only a few instruments. This song, Forest of Mystery, is no different. The first thing I notice here is the length. The song is only about 20 seconds sharp. So how does he get away with such a short loop? Well, Koji uses a brief transition section, section 2B, to tie the two sections together. If we were to remove that section and tie these two sections together again, you can see how it just doesn't fit together. The listener can be fooled by a loop point if the song can flow back into itself, as in a traditional song's verse and chorus structure. As composers, we usually want to find a chord sequence that can move back to the original key right at the loop point, and Koji successfully did that here. An interesting point before diving into the song is the quick tempo at 142 beats per minute. Admittedly, for me, this makes it difficult to record or program the strings for the song. Now, there are only 3 instruments that make up Forest of Mystery. The violins are the primary driver behind the song, outlining the chord progression. The cello underneath it is very simple, but highlights the root of the chord. Lastly, the piccolo is the melody instrument. To add more texture to the piece, I doubled the additional instruments here, with at least 3 different violins, 2 cellos, and 2 piccolos. In section 1, starting in the violins, they begin on this E major chord, before moving to a F flat 5 chord. The velocity for the violins in the section down below is vitally important. Notice in the view panel down here that I programmed the velocity to match a rising and falling pattern. Think of it like a breathing pattern. You breathe in here and then exhale right there. Koji Kondo used a different way of programming the strings than what would be normal. These strings here have an almost unnatural attack to them, especially when you get to the 3rd string. This way of articulation is what sets him apart from other composers, in that he first designs the sound he wants before finalizing the music. Moving on to the cello, it's an even more simple pattern than this. Moving on to the cello, even in a simple pattern like this, Koji manages to add some flair to it. Some notes here are purposely cut short, such as this first note, and some notes are louder and some are softer than the others, as you can see down here. This dynamic way of composing allows the listener to keep coming back to the song and pick out the subtle details. The last instrument, the piccolo, plays this shrill pull-off. Almost like a calling horn, as you would expect to hear in a forest or jungle. Again, notice the extreme sharp staccato notes in this section. Now I'll play the whole entire section 1, so you can get a taste of what's to come. For section 2, the articulation of the violins sticks to primarily staccato notes here. Look at the velocity too and how the 4th note is accented above the other notes. The subtle changes in volume is another notch to add in Koji Kondo's playbook. Now that we have more of a sense of these chords, the key of the song becomes clear. With no sharps or flats between any of these chords, the song is in C major. With this in mind, let's go back to the first section. We see that this part in particular is in E major. So Koji switches between these two keys, C in this section and E, as a way of transitioning back and forth between sections. This is also an effective method to create a loop point as well. However, even more about the key signature is uncovered in this cello line. We can also see a couple of sharps here, the G sharp and the A sharp here. So when we reach this F right here, the song modulates the key of F, which is why we have this A sharp in the second half. And then when we reach this G sharp, the song modulates the G sharp. And then same here with the A. And then finally back to the C. As you can plainly see, the amount of chord changes in such a short amount of time really creates intrigue and excitement in this section. The piccolo melody is notable for its variety of articulations. We first start with the 4 staccato notes before these next set of slightly longer notes. And then the pattern is repeated as the song modulates. This last note is a good final finish, ending in a nice vibrato and fade out. Now, before I play this entire section in full, picture, if you will, the arc of the chord progression. In particular, just follow the cello line and you can see how the arc looks like. You go down, up, and further down, and then back up again. So follow that chord progression line. Now time to play this wonderful piece in full. Note the things that we discussed before, how in section 1 the violins are articulated combining staccato and longer notes, in the piccolo how their little pull-offs are extremely sharp, and then in section 2 the intense amount of modulations occurring to create interest and anticipation for what's to come next. Thank you mightily for using your time wisely and watching this analysis of A Link to the Past's Forest of Mystery. I hope you can join us in our next episode of Music Design. Farewell.